But that's what makes Detroit, Detroit, and the whole underground thing and the whole sound, because it's a deprived sound trying to get out, you know?
Because we had all of our major impressions gave us the impression that this is the way the rest of the world was. And you're coming from a city like Detroit, if you don't leave here, you don't know. There's something here, and something happens on a creative level here that doesn't seem to happen anywhere else.
Detroit, you won't find it anywhere but here. And the people are what keeps it so animated.
You know, being a kid in Windsor back in like 86, 87, if you wanted to, you know, find anything different, you ended up coming to Detroit.
When I go out of town and then tell people I'm from Detroit, the reaction I get is like either they're really scared of me instantly, or they say, why do you live there?
There's an attitude that you get coming from this city that you don't get nowhere else.
Who would ever have thought of making music with an old turntable and a scratchy record and sticking it in an abandoned warehouse or an abandoned factory site? I'll tell you who thought of it, people in Detroit. That's who did.
Techno, the first time I heard the word was probably through Juan Atkins.
It came about from Alvin Toffler's Future Shock. The Techno Rebels is where that term comes from, and it's because they took technology and they made it a black secret.
Juan was the one that came out and emphatically said techno.
And at first, the compilation was going to be called The House Sound of Detroit. But the track that I submitted was called Techno Music. They listened to the lyrics and they said, oh, well, we got to change the name of this record. And it was called The Techno Sound of Detroit.
I mean, it literally, you know, I don't know, it was like 100-point type on the album cover, you know, techno with an exclamation point. I mean, there was no turning back from there.
And the record was huge in Europe. And one of the singles to come off of that album was Big Fun. And that record like went #1 in the UK.
Basically, techno is usually 4 on the floor, boom, 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 with the tick, boom, tick, boom, tick, boom, tss, tss. That's more house, tss, tss, boom, with the 4 on the floor. Okay, this is the 303, like this is a 606, and the 202. These are just like, they look like toys, but they really can do a lot of damage if you're making it good. And then you have break beats, which are different breaks from old records or whatever you can find, and they speed them up and they put a loop to them. It's like boom, 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 spat, boom, spat, spat, boom, spat, boom, spat, spat, boom. Jungle is more boom, 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 boom. That's more like the jungle sound. I probably don't know what the hell I'm talking about, and you probably don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but somehow we'll get there, right?
Things have been influencing, I think, this sound since guys like Raymond Scott and the Manhattan Research Project.
Kraftwerk has to be given an acknowledgement because everybody thought they were a joke.
Basically, techno, the deep roots are like Kraftwerk, Soul Sonic Force.
From disco, Giorgio Moroder. I mean, that's the first time we heard tech stuff.
And I was listening to this music with him, records from Kraftwerk and Sly Stone and Cameo and just music in general, you know.
You have to name, I think you have to name them all. You cannot expose one person.
There was a lot of electronic music. There was Depeche, I mean, I'm not gonna go down the line because I can't. I mean, I can't, there's Depeche Mode, Thompson Twins, New Order. There were all these type of groups that were making very, very electronic-only type of music.
We just coined the phrase techno, but we were definitely influenced by a lot of the Euro sound.
A lot of my early music, I mean, of course, George Clinton, P-Funk, that whole thing, I grew up with that, and that was like the group for me.
Post-high school years, early college years, everybody
got turned on by Chicago. And Chicago was the exact forerunner of what the music is today, as far as the concept of really taking some raw spaces, taking some raw systems, taking some raw jocks and some raw music and beating the heck out of it until it just took us over.
The innovators of techno per se, of course the guys from Detroit, Juan, Kevin, and Derek.
Kevin, Juan, and Derek.
Derek and Juan and Kevin are truly the masterminds behind that. If it wasn't for them, there would be no techno.
The guys who started it all for me.
They're remarkable talents.
You know, they were just doing it because they loved doing what they did, but I never thought at any moment that it was going to be the phenomenon of what it's become.
I want to say a special thanks. Juan isn't here tonight, but without Juan, he's the originator. Derek is the innovator. They called me the elevator. And we worked as a team, and we're just truly blessed.
They were doing just some phenomenal stuff with these makeshift living room studios, and they were producing some of the hardest core house music that you would ever have heard.
It's not easy to do that. I mean, a lot of the stuff early stuff that Derek and some of those guys did were triggered. Man, it took hours to do that kind of stuff.
You know, it wasn't alternative, it wasn't electro, it was something in between. And the more I heard it, the more that kind of grabbed me and kind of pulled me in deeper and deeper and deeper until I was in the middle of it all.
And I call them the masters because they mastered the art of putting all that music together and making you dance for 6 or 7 hours straight and taking you wherever they wanted you to go.
Before any of that even became music, you know, for the masses to hear, I thought that it was, I thought those guys were onto something then, but they just took it just to a whole nother level. Whole nother level.